Week 4. Even had to make sure I'm looking at this correctly. Week 4. We're talking about organizing argument this week. Got my coffee. It's not coffee. Let's not be fibbers. This is French vanilla cappuccino. Hey, that's an improvement for me. I only discovered that cappuccino wasn't the devil on November the 1st of 2024. I am not a coffee drinker, don't like coffee, think coffee's nasty, love the smell of it. Mm, love the smell of coffee, can smell it all day. Like I love a coffee scented candle that makes me happy. But to taste it, I had a friend tell me one time that my bitter taste buds must not have developed very far when I was a child. But I discovered that cappuccino wasn't so bad. Apparently, it's got coffee in it. I don't know. It tastes like flavored hot chocolate. Ah, so nice and toasty. Has nothing to do with anything. We're going to talk about organizing argument. So let's get this up and running. There we are. This is what we're talking about today. Organizing the argument. And how do we do that? If you had my Comp 1 class, this will be repetition for you. And I do not apologize because repetition is good for us. And you would have learned that in Comp 1. Swung the hammer, swung the hammer, swung the hammer. My Comp 1 students are traumatized. So every one of them just went, you didn't have me for Comp 1. You just thought I was really strange. The spilled spelling, right? But we don't want to say things like, he loved to see her eyes light up with surprise and joy when he brought her a surprise, because that's not good repetition. Stephen King. Moving on. We are going to talk about the writing process. Now, here's something that I know. Every Comp 1 teacher teaches differently, and some teach the writing process, some don't. Some talk about outlining, some don't. So you all have different Comp 1 teachers, and then you end up with me as a Comp 2 teacher, but you're all coming from full-time faculty or adjunct faculty who none of us teach the same way. And so I have to keep that in mind when I'm teaching a Comp 2 class. And because of that, I'm going to go ahead and do a refresher on some of these items that I do teach in my Comp 1 class. Things that I know are important for students to ensure that they are effectively putting their information together. And because of that, we are going to take a little bit of time today. I do not expect this video lecture to be near as long as the one I did for last week's materials. When I was finished with it, I had no idea I had been talking for an hour and 57 minutes. I don't apologize for it, though, because as I have stated, if we were in the physical classroom together, I would have your undivided attention for 2 hours and 40 minutes. So 1 hour and 57 minutes, that's still short. Might not feel like it when you open up that YouTube link and you go, holy cow. But really, it's shorter than what you would experience if you were in the classroom. So this one, I do not believe or do not look for it to be near as long. But we are going to talk about the writing process right now. To those of you who hate writing or don't like writing or say, I can't write, hold on. First of all, I want you to let go of that mindset. Let go of high school, whatever traumatized you in a high school English class, let that go. Let go of Comp 1 if you were traumatized in Comp 1. I know some people are. Let that go. If you've traumatized yourself, let that go. And if you've got some pretty bad habits from the past regarding writing and how you move forward in a writing course, let that go too. We're going to start fresh. We're starting from scratch. Now, breathe. Might be a good time to also maybe take some notes. I think that's probably a pretty good idea to take some notes on what I'm about to talk about. I don't know. It's just me. Of course, you do have your PowerPoint. You can open the PowerPoint up, but I always say things more than are on the PowerPoint. So kind of easy to tell when we do assignments and whatnot who's reading their PowerPoints and who's actually watching the video lectures. Oh, that's so good. All right. So it's time for some new thinking. I came across a quote I wanted to share with you. Yes, I love quotes. I am convinced that anyone can be a great writer if he can only tell the naked truth about himself and other people. That a little technique with words and the willingness to bare heart, soul, and body are really all it takes. So let's look at that again. I am convinced that anyone can be a great writer if he can only, if tell the naked truth about himself and other people. Be willing to be honest. We'll talk more about that next week. That a little technique with words, just a little technique with words. Incorporate what we talked about last week. Pay attention to your audience. Think about those rhetorical devices. Think about the literary devices. Punctuation, grammar. Run a grammar check. Use Grammarly. Little technique with words. And the willingness to bare heart, soul, and body. To be honest again. And we'll talk, like I said, we'll talk more about that next week. Are really all it takes. Anyone can be a great writer if they're willing to be honest and apply some technique. So this is said by Clive Barnes. Does that mean something to you? Anybody? Anybody? Y'all like, who's Clive Barnes? Well, he's that guy. That's him. So do you believe his quote? You feel like you can take his quote at face value? Can you just trust what he has to say without knowing who he is? No, you shouldn't. You can't. You shouldn't. So let's look at who is Clive Barnes. I looked him up. I found some information. So who is Clive Barnes and why can I listen to him? Why should I listen to him? Well, Clive Barnes, who was an influential critic in Britain and later for the New York Times, helped bring dance to a broad audience with an exuberant, highly professional style, and who for many years was a theater critic for the Times and then the New York Post, died early Wednesday. He was 81 and lived in Manhattan. His death at Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan was caused by complications from cancer, his wife Valerie Taylor Barnes said. Until a few weeks before his death, he continued filing reviews for the Post, as he had for the last 30 years. Mr. Barnes, a buoyant, energetic Londoner who once described himself as your typical working class overachiever, made his mark by waging a sustained assault on British dance criticism as it was then practiced just after World War II. It was, he argued, provincial and ill-informed scribbling, usually by music critics. Writing for several publications simultaneously, primarily The Spectator and The Times of London, which hired him as its first full-time dance critic in 1961, he exposed his readers to foreign dance companies and choreographers like George Balanchine and Martha Graham when most British critics were ignoring them. So we have a man who's written for multiple newspapers as a critic. multiple newspapers, London and in the United States. For over 30 years, he was a dance critic, writing critiques, writing reviews of dance for multiple magazines. His 13 years as a dance critic at the Times, from 1965 to 1977, coincided with the rapid expansion of the dance world and an explosion of new talent. As chief theater critic, a position he held for nearly a decade, he championed plays by Harold Pinter and Tom Stoppard, wrote appreciatively of the young David Mamet, and embraced initially with some reservations and later with none the musical Hair. It was as a dance critic, however, that he made his strongest impact. He witnessed and described, as he later observed in Dance Magazine, dance's finest hours in all its brief history, a period in which Jerome Robbins and Balanchine were at their peak. Mercy Cunningham and Paul Taylor moved from strength to strength, and new choreographers like Elliott Field and Twyla Tharp were beginning to make a stir. At the Times, Mr. Barnes made dance an art for all, taking both dance criticism and American dance out of its specialized niche. His erudition, distilled into shrewdly pithy analysis, prompted not just readers but also choreographers and dancers to sit up and learn something new. He was literate, knowledgeable, and passionate, said Lynn Garafola, a professor of dance at Barnard College. When it came to a challenging work, he would review not just the first performance, but the second performance and the third performance, and then write an analytic piece too. He also had a remarkable visual memory. He wasn't just seeing the ballet in front of him, he had a bank of memories that went back half a century. Clive Alexander Barnes was born in London. His father, an ambulance driver, deserted the family when Clive was 7. His mother, a secretary for a theatrical press agent, passed along free tickets to her son, who began attending theater and ballet at an early age. So Clive Barnes, father left home when he was 7, not when his father was 7, but when Clive was 7. See, there's one of those instances where your pronouns are important. So the father left the home, and the mother worked as a secretary for a theatrical press agent. And she got tickets for free, so she gave them to her son, kept him busy, kept him off the street. So he goes. He goes to the theater, and he begins experiencing this world of dance and ballet at a very young age. So much so that he rises to the level of literary critic and is a critic, a writer for multiple magazines, well known, well regarded, highly influential. So when we see this quote now, I'm convinced that anyone can be a great writer if he can only tell the naked truth about himself and other people. That a little technique with words and the willingness to bear heart, soul, and body are really all it takes. Now, those words mean a little more because we know where they're coming from. We're coming from someone who knew he was an overachiever. We're coming from someone who worked hard, who knows that what it takes is a little technique and a willingness to be honest. Sets you apart because most people aren't those things or willing to put in the effort to have some technique. So I love this quote. And the conclusion I draw here is anyone can be a writer. You are already a communicator, and you are already a writer. Where's my proof of that? Here's my proof of that. Every one of us is already writers. The Comp 1 textbook in most of our Comp 1 classes is called Everyone's a Writer, or Everyone's an Author. And it's the truth. You're writing things all day, every day. And if you weren't able to communicate an idea through text to your mom, right? You might have some issues, but we are able to communicate those messages. We are able to get our ideas across. We are communicators and we already are writers. So now, what do we need to do in order to be a great writer? Be willing to tell the truth about yourself and apply some technique. Interesting. So, a little technique. It's called the writing process. Let's talk about it. Here it is in all its glory, the writing process. First, know your topic. Make sure that you know what your topic is. Do a little bit of research. Understand your assignment. Make sure that you know exactly what it is that you have to be doing and what you are to be working on. If you need to ask questions, ask questions. Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. This is your college experience. Make it what you need it to be. Ask questions, get the information you need, know your topic. Number two, get in your zone. What we need to do with get in your zone is you need to start forming a study habit. Start forming a writing zone. Stephen King does this. He gets up every morning, he has some breakfast, he might exercise. I know he used to. I'm not sure if he does still. But he spends some time with his wife. He catches up on a little bit of the news. And he is in his office by 8:30 and he is writing until about 11:30. While in his office, if he is writing a manuscript, he has his door closed and his blinds shut. On his desk, there is a cup of tea and nothing else. It's clean. His desk is clean. He likes a clean desk. Now, if he goes to his office during this time and it's editing time, he has his door open and he has his blinds open because he has trained his brain to know if the door is shut and the blinds are closed, it's time to write. If the blinds are open and the door is open, it's time to edit. I have to be open. So that's Stephen King's zone. For me, it depends on what I'm writing. If I'm going to be doing some fiction writing, I'm best at night with the light off, alone in the room, maybe some music playing in the background, depends on the mood I'm going for, but I've got to shut everything out. And I like the light off. Nothing to distract me. Now, if I'm doing schoolwork, completely different scenario. Schoolwork, morning, I'm right here. I'm right here where I'm sitting right now in my office area. And yeah, I've got to have something to drink. I've got two somethings to drink. I've got my bottle of water and I've got my cappuccino. I've got some snacks in my drawer. And, I have everything that I need. I have notebook, I have pen, I have my notes for our course, I have my phone, I have earphones if I need them. Um, but I have everything that I need, and I make sure that I do before I get started working. My brain knows if I'm sitting here, it's schoolwork time. So if that's what you need to do is get in a zone, create a habitual thing that you do so you begin to train your brain it's time to work. The next step in the writing process is schedule your time. If you know what your assignment is, you know how long it's going to take you, you know what your due dates are. So get your calendar out and make a plan. Make a plan for how you are going to tackle this work. You can do it. You absolutely can. So schedule your time. The fourth step is to do some free writing. And I'm going to show you with my outline worksheet where I like to fit the free writing in. But when you know your topic, you want to do some free writing about it, figure out what you already know before you do very much research. What do you already know for it and against it? Do some free writing. The fifth step is then we're going to organize, organize our thoughts. And like I said, I've got the outline worksheet coming up. I'm going to walk you through how to use that. And that's your next step is organizing, creating an outline. The sixth step in the writing process is to research. Now, some of you might feel like that's a little strange to do research after creating your outline. My argument is this. If you do your research first, you don't have a narrowed focus. And because you don't have a narrowed focus, you're kind of just willy-nilly grabbing information and then you're going to try to force fit it into something. That's what I used to do a long time ago before I figured this out. So if we create an outline first out of what we already know and perhaps a little bit of research from what we already know, then we have our outline, we can begin to go and do specific focused research, find the information that's going to back up the main points on your outline. that you've already created. Now, after you do that, you can play with your outline again. If you need to make some adjustments on it, no problem. This is yours. You do with it as you will. But this is the pathway that's going to keep you the most organized. The seventh step is to write your awful first draft. For some of you, you need to be told this, and I need you to listen closely. There is no such thing as perfect. So those of you running around out there, you're frustrated with writing because you're a quote unquote perfectionist. Stop it. Stop it right now. You are making yourself crazy. There is no such thing as perfect. Not in writing, certainly. And so we need to let that go. Anything that's written can be edited. Absolutely anything. It can be rewritten. It can be written upside down. It can be written backward. It can always be redone. So there is no perfect. You can aim for great, which is awesome. But we don't do that in the rough draft stage. It's called a rough draft for a reason. It's going to not be great. And it's okay if it's not great. So if you're one of those people that's editing every sentence as you write, you are literally making yourself crazy. Excuse me. So stop doing that. It's not healthy. Literally not healthy for you. So let that mess go because you're tripping yourself up. Be willing to let the rough draft be what it is supposed to be, and that is a rough draft. Now, the next step is we put it away. And some of you are like, what? Put it away? What are you talking about? Well, if you've scheduled your time and you know that this is a vital step, you're going to make sure that you have the time for this. After you've written your rough draft, which is rough, put it away. Don't look at it. Give yourself a couple of days without it. Don't think about it. Don't breathe about it. Run away from it. Do something fun. Do something else. Do work for another class. Don't even think at all about that rough draft. The reason for this is you are emotionally wrapped up in it. And most of those emotions are negative. Most of you are, I hate it. It's so bad. No one's going to like it. Everyone's going to think it's stupid, blah, blah, blah. We have to let go of those negative emotions. And the only way to do that is to put it away. Let some time go by. Let the emotions fade because that's what emotions do. Emotions fade. They don't last. Facts last. The emotions don't. So, after we've put it away for a while, and more than just a couple of hours, we're talking 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, whatever you can afford in your time bank because you scheduled your time. The ninth step is to then edit it. And I put edit, edit, edit because it's a great idea to edit it no less than 3 times. One of those times, read it out loud. When you read it out loud, you're going to hear mistakes that your eyes won't see. And you'll find as I'm making these video lectures and you're going to the video lectures this semester, every now and then I'm going to come across a mistake in the PowerPoint and I'm going to be like, oh, we have to fix that. And I'll update it on the Blackboard before you see it, right? So it's still going to be in the video lecture, but if you pull up the PowerPoint, I will have corrected that. But the reason for that is I hear the mistakes that my eyes don't see. And the same is true for you. It doesn't matter what you're writing, you should read it out loud. Your ears are going to catch things eyes don't see. Another great idea, my friend Nancy Erickson, who is the owner of a publishing company in St. Louis, she has her clients, the authors that write books for her, she has them sit and read their work out loud to her. So not only is she following along, but she's listening and reading at the same time that they're reading and listening to their own words. Very important. I heard her say that. She said that in an interview recently when I was talking with her for the author series that Professor Kyle Hayes and I are putting together. We interviewed her for that. And it was just like this moment where I went, oh my gosh, that's a wonderful idea. So if you've got somebody that will be willing to sit and listen, Have them have a copy, have you have a copy, and you read it out loud to them, and you both be listening to it. Both of you can catch things that way. It's a wonderful way to edit your work. Run it through a grammar checker, right? There's so many available to you, so many out there in the big wide world. But one of the other things that I like to do is when I'm editing is one time I'll go through the paper and I will be looking just at verb tense. Another time I'll go through the paper and look at adverbs. Most adverbs I like to remove from my writing because they don't make your writing strong. We want to make our writing as visual as possible. Adverbs are, Stephen King calls them the tools of timid writers. They're cheating. We need to put fully fleshed out description scenes rather than relying on an adverb to do it for us. So there are many things that you can look for in the editing check or the editing section. Use a checklist. The ones I've given you on Blackboard, those are great tools, guides to use. The rubric is a great guide to use in the editing stage. And your 10th stage is peer review. Get peer review. Have someone else go over your work. That is vitally important. And then the 11th stage is complete your final draft. Boom, boom, boom. That is the writing process in a nutshell. Now, don't skip the steps and don't do them out of order. The order is important. Now, organization is powerful. And I am going to get up for a moment and go and shut my door because my cat was in here and he just let himself out. Clawed the door right open. Just a moment. Crazy cat. Organization is powerful. Thor thinks so. Oh, now I am going to share with you the writing an argument worksheet. Ta-da! This is something that I put together years ago when I was using that writing arguments textbook, right, for the trade school environment. And it was way too big and way too complicated because it literally was written for like a law school environment. Way too much for students who were going into electrical and plumbing who didn't give a rat's patoot about taking an English class. So I tried to put it in as much of their layman's terms as possible. And I had to do that all the way down to and including how to outline. I couldn't use the wording from the textbook. All of us, even myself included, read through some of that going, what? So this is in everyday people language, which is important. So writing an argument worksheet. This is how it begins. Ta-da! First of all, write down your topic. You might think that's silly, but it's not. It's psychological. Write your topic down. And then the next one is, what is the context of the assignment? Is this an essay? Is it a message? Is it a speech? What's the context of the essay? What's the assignment? Write that down. Then ask yourself, who is my audience? Now, in this class, I believe that I have given you an audience suggestion for each writing project that we're going to do. And so you want to be paying attention to that and write that, in on your worksheet so that you don't lose track, so you don't forget who your audience is. We must know our audience. Now, the next section is, what is the context of the audience? What do you need to know about the audience? What's important to know about the audience? Write down everything that you can discover about who your audience is that you need to know and keep in mind. That's the context of the audience. And then what is your goal? Why are you bringing this message to your audience? Why is this important? What result do you want? You want to write that down too. Cause them to think. The next step is the free writing. What do you already know about the topic, for it and against it? You're going to spend a little bit of time on the page writing down everything that you know about your topic without really looking anything up. You just want to word vomit. Thank you, baby, for the help and the visual aid. We want to be like this baby and just our words. Yes, you're welcome. The next step in the writing process is to look back through your word vomit with your topic in mind and ask yourself, what is my opinion on this topic? Chances are very strong it is hidden there in your word vomit. When you figure it out, write it down. Write down your opinion. And then we come to the point of the worksheet where we determine our three main points. Often you will also have these already in your word vomit. So you go back through there, look and see if there are 3 points that will back up your opinion. If there are 3 points that back up your opinion statement, write them down. Put them in order of weakest to strongest. Strongest point is always last. We want to build our message. Every preacher does it this way. Every politician does it this way. A good salesperson does it this way. You save the strongest point to the end, where you go, boom, and you punch them with it. Yes. Every preacher wants everybody opening up their wallets and getting the money out at that point, or coming forward and making a decision. You get them emotional with your third point. Kind of build it with the second point. With the first one, you want to interest them. Kind of reel them in. After we have our 3 main points, this is when we build our thesis statement. And again, I point back to my students at Vatterott, and the textbook's explanation of how to create a thesis statement was head scratching, to say the least. So I decided I needed to find a way to put this into layman's terms. And so here's what I came up with. I came up with a math statement. I felt pretty smart about that. So create a thesis from your opinion and your 3 main points. This is one sentence. It is a thesis statement. It is one. We are not going to be writing anything that needs 2 to 3 sentences. We are doing one sentence. If when I'm grading your paper, your thesis is 2 to 3 sentences, you will lose points. One sentence. It must be debatable and tell what your essay or your presentation will be about. It must pass the so what test. So here it is, your math equation for a thesis statement. Opinion plus because plus 3 main points equals thesis. You already know what your opinion is. You already wrote it down. You already have your 3 main points because there they are, right there on that page in front of you. Put the word because between them. Boom, boom. And chances are very strong that you've got a workable beginning thesis statement. It's perfect for your initial outline. It's perfect for your rough draft. There you go. In this worksheet also, now on Blackboard under handouts, I have given you the writing an essay outline worksheet and writing a basic outline worksheet. The basic one doesn't have all this additional explanation in it, but the writing an essay, an argument essay worksheet, outline worksheet has this information in it. And I'm not going to read through all of this right now, but you can see that it's there. This handout is beneficial. I highly recommend that you take a look at that. So this kind of talks about what your introduction should look like, 1 to 2 paragraphs. Yeah, I'm not going to read all that right now, but this is important. Hooking your listener. The hook goes at the beginning. The thesis comes at the end. Please keep that in mind. Thesis comes at the end of your introduction. If your thesis is at the beginning of your essay, I will take off points. If your thesis is the first paragraph and that's the only thing in your introduction, I will also take off points. You need to have an introduction that leads to your thesis statement. See right there, state your claim at the end of your introductory paragraph. Moving forward. Subpoints, we got to have them. So you have your main points and you're going to have subpoints under each one of your main points. The basic rule is to have three for each. So for main point one, you're going to have ABC, main point two, ABC, main point three, ABC. That's the basic rule there when you're putting together an outline. These are some of the things that are needed in a larger paper, in a larger outline. The topic sentence, which is basically the thesis for main point one. Then you would explain it, introduce evidence, state evidence, explain your evidence, and then conclude your paragraph. I'm not necessarily going to be looking for this structure, but it is a good idea to know about this structure. Supporting evidence in paragraphs 2, 3, 4, etc. You want to consider having counter arguments. And I'm going to lay all of this out more here in just a second. Your conclusion, we'll take a look more at that as well. I think this language this isn't coming in exactly the order that I want this to at this moment, but it's still good for you to read through. I don't want to confuse you. But speaking of, I don't want to confuse you, I have inserted a video into this PowerPoint. And I'm going to play this for you because we need a little bit of break every now and then, a little intermission. All right, here we go.
About the rain.
Tom, residents all over Quahog have been affected by the heavy rains, although some are doing their best to ride it out. For example, I'm here with Rides a 10-speed everywhere guy. Sir, why are you riding your 10-speed in the rain?
I don't mind. A little drizzle never hurt anybody. I like riding the 10-speed because it's fun, gives me energy, and it's a great way to stay in shape.
What do you do for a living?
I work in accounts receivable at Quahog Insurance. It's not too demanding, the pay is good, and it's a great way to stay in shape.
Well, we should wrap this up. You're getting wet.
Well, I'm living life before the cancer I have kills me, so I don't mind the rain. Water feels good on my skin. It's cool, refreshing, and it's a great way to stay in shape.
What kind of cancer?
It's rectal cancer. It's slowly eating away at my lower insides. It's a quick process, both painful and untreatable, and it's a great way to stay in shape.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Tricia. Some local residents have even been evacuated to Quahog Stadium.
Okay, it's a great way to stay in shape. In my family, this is just one of those quotes that got picked up from one of these videos and has become a staple of cliches that we use. It'll just be at the end of any kind of a statement where you're talking along, and my nephew will pop in, and it's a great way to stay in shape. And we all laugh.
About the rain.
Oh, no, we want to move forward. Did we just go backwards? We did just go backwards, so we want to go forwards. No, that was the right way. I don't know what I'm doing. We're somehow back at the same screen that we went to before, but conclusion. Restate your thesis. Oh, it's different words on the right side here. Conclusion. Restate your thesis, recap your points, and it's a great way to stay in shape. God. All those jokes only work if I remember what I'm doing. All right, so conclusion continued. You need to have a drop the mic conclusion, and in your essays, that's going to be where you let your reader know what they should do as a result of your argument. What should they have learned that's going to make them want to act? Okay, so your drop the mic conclusion is going to have some kind of a call to action in it. It could even be just go read this for yourself and then keep yourself informed. I mean, something there. And so again, you have this worksheet available to you. You can read through it on your own time. Back to the outline. This is the point where we create the outline itself. We might not want to write the introduction just yet, but the introduction is a great place to do a summary of what you're talking about. It's a great place if you are doing a literary analysis, great place to talk about the author's life. But you might want to leave the introduction part of your outline blank for just a little bit, come back and fill it in after you get the rest of the outline created. Nothing wrong with doing that. Or if you know exactly how you want to start it out, if it's got like a giant boom in your head and you know what you want to do here, go ahead and write that down. You can always change it. That's the fun thing about writing is it's your control. You can fix it, you can change it, you can alter it, you can do what you need, but you should start with an outline. Have some ideas of where you're headed. And so we already have our thesis statement, so we're going to write it right here. Now, the next section is the main point, or main point 1. And I have 2 pages of explanation of main point 1 here for you. So this isn't just it right here on this page. So main point 1, write it down. And then you want to fill in your subpoints A, B, and C. You might want to, or probably should, think about what can be a transition sentence from the thesis statement into main point 1 and write that there. Now, the next section of main point 1, this is where if you do have a counter argument, you want to write it down and have it here clear for yourself in your outline. And then have a conclusion to main point 1. Do the same thing for main point 2 and the same thing for main point 3. These are in the worksheet. Then we have our conclusion. So restate your thesis statement and then write that drop the mic conclusion, your call to action. So this is a good time you do this. You also can go back and put your introduction in, or maybe you already thought of it, but get your outline created. Now, once you have your outline created, what is the next step? Well, let me tell you what I learned a long time ago. We're talking either at the end of high school or early college, right around 89 to 91. At some point in there, I learned this, and I'm grateful for it. So how do I conduct research? I'm so glad you asked. We're going to go back to the writing and argument worksheet. Research is the next step, right? So what you want to do is gather your sources. After you've created your outline, go ahead and decide, look for where you're going to get information. Find the places where you're going to be able to get the information that you need and gather those resources. Go ahead and create your works cited page. You haven't really done any of the research just yet, but you know what you're going to use. You've kind of been through it. You know what you want to use. You're staying focused with your outline. So go ahead and make your works cited page. So here we go. And then you want to label your works cited page with A, B, C, D, E, F, right? Awesome stuff. Once you have this done, then you need a stack of index cards, a stack of note cards with lines on them that you can write on. Or you can do this with small, you could make some note cards on your computer and do these on your computer. That way you have them saved in Word. However you want to do it. Like you can set your page size to be note card size on Word, and you could create these there as well if you wanted to do that. But for me personally, I think it's easy just to have some note cards like this. And you can't really see them because there it is. I tilted a little bit. It's just regular note cards. I use these for just about everything. I'm a note card fiend. I love them. So once we have our note cards, we're going to do some note taking as we go through our sources. And the description is here. This is also on your writing and argument essay worksheet. Also, though, it is individually on Research Mrs. C's Way, note cards Mrs. C's Way, whatever, it's under handouts as well. So the idea here is to label each index card with the letter of the resource in the upper left-hand corner. So you're going to start with the resource that you labeled as A. And then on each note card where you're going to take information from that source, put an A. And then with your letter in place on the note card, then begin to read or scan your resource. When you find the information you want to quote or paraphrase, write it in the middle of the card on the lines. If this information is from a book or a site with page numbers, put the page number next to the letter on the card. Across the top of the card, on the red line, write the subject of the card. It is helpful to consider where this card might fit on the outline that you've already created and give the card a subject heading that will fit your outline. On the bottom right corner of the index card, write whether the information on the card is a quote, a summary, or a paraphrase, so that you keep track of what information must have quotation marks and citations in the text of your essay. So down in that bottom right corner, put quote, paraphrase, or summary. If it's a quote or a paraphrase, you need a parenthetical citation, and more than likely you need a signal phrase. You might want to make a note card that has the signal phrase information as well. Excuse me. And then if it's a summary, that doesn't require citation in the text, but it might help you remember a particular bit of information when you get to that point in your rough draft writing. So make sure that you mark each card in the bottom right corner. What is it? A quote, a summary, or a paraphrase. Once all the pertinent information is gathered and note cards are filled out, the last thing that you need to do is organize your note cards. So with your outline handy, sort the cards according to where they fit on the outline and label the cards in the upper right corner with where they fit on the outline. 3B, 2A, 1C, 3A, 2C, etc. So here's what that looks like. And so you put those in outline order. And then the magic of it is you sit down to write your rough draft, you have your outline, you have a stack of note cards that is in outline order. You can just start writing your rough draft, and then you flip the note cards as you go. As you come to the different points in the outline, you've got the cards that go with it. Just flip them, keep writing. You are organized, you are clean, everything's where it should be. Boom. So, write your rough draft. And I've got here write without editing. No stopping along the way, just follow the outline and the note cards and write. It's easier said than done, but it is the best way. Get all of the words out and let the rough draft sit after it's done. Let it marinate. Leave it alone and do something else for a day or two. This will not be an issue if you have allotted plenty of time for the whole writing process. So the writing an argument worksheet or the writing an essay argument worksheet is on Blackboard. Save it, or download it, save it to your computer, use it. I don't have any patent on it or copyright or anything, so save it, send a copy to friends. Let's just help everybody be organized. Skip parts of the writing process you must not. Long con, short game, your best you must do. Thank you, Yoda. So hopefully you got all of that. It's important information. We want to stay as organized as we possibly can so that our arguments can be as effective as we need them to be. So let's talk about homework for this week. You do have delivering quality work with agility on Coursera this week, plus the Coursera quiz. Let me make sure, look over here. There is the discussion thread as well for organizing argument. That needs to be added onto here on the PowerPoint, but it's not there right now. We also have Essay 2 this week beginning. And Essay 2's title is The Impact of Social Media on Career Opportunities. So let's look at what we need to know before we get to that space. So it's week 4. Delivering quality work with agility on Coursera is going to be 1 hour. I'm also assigning Essay 2. I'm assigning Essay 2 this week specifically because Coursera should only take you an average of 1 hour. So I feel completely confident and comfortable assigning an essay this week. Week 5, your Coursera will be Present with Purpose, Create and Deliver Effective Presentations, and it is slotted to take 2 hours. So the reason I'm including this here is I want you to schedule your time. You need to be working on the bulk of this rough draft and this study, organizing this essay this week. Week 4 is going to be your best time for that. Now, don't procrastinate. I mean, if you do, you do, right? You do you, boo. Let them. But keep in mind, next week, Coursera is going to take a couple of hours, so this week's only 1. My suggestion would be start working on that essay right away. Week 6, Coursera is slotted to take 3 hours, but we are also going to be doing peer review that week. And so the only homework you're going to have at the end of week 6 well, not the only homework, but the bulk of your homework at the end of week 6 is going to be, let me make sure that that's right over here. Yeah, you're going to be completing your final draft of essay 2. So, right, but you'll also be doing the Coursera work. Remember how I told you about my best friends and the fact that we have the thread all the time? That was just them. Those 2 different text tones that you just heard, that's my girls. I know their texts, their text tones. My friend who lives down near McAllister, she says, not liking this forecast at all. The wind chill is freezing. Yeah, it's really cold today. It's 32 degrees where she lives, but it feels like 10. It's super cold here too. So how about I turn my ringer off so we don't listen to that because they're going to keep going back and forth for a while. I'll jump into it when I'm done here. So week 7, that's when essay 2 will be due, and we will be doing a 3-hour Coursera that week. So I want you to schedule your time. I've assigned essay 2 on purpose in week 4. All right. So let's talk about essay 2. This is very pertinent to the world today. This is something that I need you thinking about. Employers need you thinking about. I have a former student, and she, you know what? I need to add this to the PowerPoint. But I'm going to tell you about it, and then I'm going to add it to the PowerPoint. She got a hold of me after an event happened to her with the specific intent of, she said, use me as an example in all of your future classes. And I was like, are you sure? And she said, yes. I said, okay. So just something to be thinking about here as we are about to step into this assignment. The impact of social media on career opportunities. So she was hired at Scheels. Pretty excited. And she got started at Scheels and she enjoyed it there. It was good. She liked it. And she made a post on social media about an interaction with a customer that had not been so fun. And the next day she was fired. Because somebody had seen her post and I guess told someone else, who told someone else, and it got back around. And they called her in the next day and fired her. She said, please use me as an example. I don't want this to happen to someone else. They need to take this seriously. I said, okay. If you're giving me permission to do that, I will do that. So I'm going to add that to the PowerPoint. It won't be in our video lecture, but the PowerPoint that's going to be on Blackboard, you'll be able to open that up and maybe see, maybe I won't add it to the new, but I probably will. I'll go ahead and add that information in here and then I'll re-upload a new edited version of the PowerPoint. I've got a couple other things I need to go back through there and change too. So the impact of social media on career opportunities. It's not the only time or the first time that I've heard of someone getting fired for something that they did on social media. I also know there are people who don't get hired in the first place because of things that are on their social media. We have to be aware. Now, it's not to say that social media just has a negative impact on the workplace. It can also have a very positive impact on the workplace. And so because of that, we're going to talk about this in our essays, and then we'll have a week where we share what we found with each other. And we'll do that through the discussion thread, but I'm looking forward to it. So the purpose is this: discuss the impact of social media on employment and career opportunities in 2025. Now, if you're watching this in spring of 2026, I want you to readjust that time there in 2026. If you're watching this in 2027, adjust the time. This will be from the first person's point of view. I want your thoughts, not AI's, based on your research. You may want to take a negative stance. You may want to take a positive stance. You may want to say social media is both negative and positive, though giving stronger weight to one side. Whichever stance you take regarding the impact of social media on the employment world, you will argue your opinion and use relevant examples, stories, data to back up your thoughts. Here's a hint for research material. Look up Justine Sacco's story. There's an article by John Ronson called How One Stupid Tweet Blew Up Justine Sacco's Life. It used to be in the Writing and Arguing About Literature textbook. It's not in the newer version, but it was in like the 3rd edition. So there's an article by John Ronson called How One Stupid Tweet Blew Up Justine Sacco's Life. It's a great jumping point for this conversation, but it's not got the corner on the market to be cliche. Many stories and examples of social media's impact on career opportunities exist. They exist both in a positive light and a negative. Your stance will determine the types of stories you'll need to focus on to make your argument. Now, I'll tell you, Justine Sacco's went a little something like this. Here she is, a PR exec, right? So public relations was her job. She's in London and she's going to fly to South Africa. And before she gets on the plane, she sends a tweet out to her 177 followers on then Twitter. This was several years ago, like 2014, or maybe it was before that. But so she sends out a tweet and it says this: going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding, I'm white. She closes her phone, turns it off, gets on the airplane. Somebody didn't like what she wrote that was in her 177 followers. And they retweeted it. And that got retweeted. And that got retweeted. And it quickly went viral. By the time the plane landed, her phone was blowing up with messages when she turned it back on. She calls her best friend because her best friend had been trying to call her. And her best friend's like, where have you been? What have you done? Her life changed forever. She lost her job. She was barely able to work for a long time afterwards. She had to leave the country to find work because of cancel culture. People were calling for her basically beheading, right? That might be a tad of exaggeration, but it's not at the same time, because when cancel culture kicks in, we think people deserve death for their actions. Fire them. Make sure they can't ever get a job again. Be careful with social media. It can be good, but it can also be very bad. And so I want you to look up stories and what is your stance going to be on this issue? And then back it up. Back it up with information. Steps to complete the task. Think about social media and its impact on the career and employment world. Do you think it has a positive impact, a negative impact, or both? Can it be both helpful and destructive? How? You will use your own experience. I'd love to have your own personal stories in there, or the stories of those that you know, and academic research to support your thoughts. You can find stories online as well. They don't have to necessarily be from academic articles, because that's probably not where you're going to find those. But find some stories online as well. Talk to people that you know. Maybe do an interview or two. You can put those on your Works Cited page. Interview people who've been affected by social media, whether positive or negative. Maybe you work somewhere and you know that social media really benefits your company. Let us know about it. Write about that. Have an opinion and argue it effectively. Your audience is going to be people between the ages of 18 and 30. So if you're older like me, you're going to be like wanting to mama talk people. And chances are very strong, if you're older like me, you're going to be like, social media is turning our world upside down in not a great way. I know a lot of people my age who hate social media, and we think back to the good old days when we were your age and there wasn't any of this nut stuff. Like, it didn't exist. We actually talked to each other. Our worlds were fairly small. But things are different now. Now, some of you are young. You're in that age group. So what would you say to your peers about this? What have you learned? What can be a benefit to that audience, the 18 to 30 bracket? Organize your thoughts using a basic outline structure as you consider social media's impact on the employment world and whether it is helpful, destructive, or both. Choose 3 main points. Define any unfamiliar terms. Give examples of each main point that establishes or backs up your claim. Discuss why others would benefit from this information. Use information relative to your argument, ensuring these sources are from academic resources such as the TCC library if they are helpful to your argument. So let's see here. Do we need to read all of this? Use an outline to help you get this started. And the outline will be included. I do want to see it. The outline will be included with your rough draft. Okay. So keep that in mind. We are going to include the outline with the rough draft. Your rough draft will be 1,250 words, 4 pages, and Times New Roman 12-point font. The works cited page is needed if you've quoted or paraphrased anything or anyone. Again, interviews. If you do interviews and talk to a parent, a sibling, a friend, a boss, anyone. Maybe you go to the people at your job, depending on how close you are with them. Maybe you know somebody in HR, and you'd be like, can you tell me anonymously about somebody you might have had to fire because of social media? Or maybe you work in the PR area and you know how amazing social media is for your company. Whatever you need to do here that's going to back up your point. So your outline and rough draft are going to be due, if you are in the spring of 2025, looks like February the 17th. February the 17th, and that's going to be at 8 o'clock in the morning. 8 o'clock in the morning. I know most everything else in the world in this class is due at 11:59 p.m. Yes, except for rough drafts. Rough drafts, 8 o'clock in the morning. And the reason for that is peer review. So get that turned in, and that is the week of peer review, and you will be in peer review groups. I will assign those into the groups section. We'll talk more about that when we get closer to it. And no outline rough draft combos will be accepted late. None, 0, no exceptions. All right, those are for peer review. Let's see here. And then your final draft is going to be due, ta-da, if this is the spring of 2025 semester when you're watching this, February 24th at 11:59 p.m. That's not an 8 o'clocker. All right. 100 points possible at the end for that final draft. We will be doing 20 points for the rough draft. If you don't have it in on time, you won't get that 20 points. So overall, this is a 120-point project. So you're either going to get 120-ish if you reach that. If your paper is spot on, you have the possibility to get up to 120 points. Or if you don't get your rough draft turned in, the most you can get is 100, depending on how well you do on that final draft. Criteria for success on Essay 2. Uploaded as a PDF. I want it uploaded as a PDF, or I'll take off points. That your audience is people between the ages of 18 to 30. I want to be able to tell that with the language choices that you make. MLA format, Times New Roman 12-point font, classic double spaced. And I have given you a link here to the handout if you need to remember how to do that. Opinionated thesis statement in 1 sentence. Make your thesis bold format. Main points in order of impact. The strongest point is last. Ensure your MLA in-text citations are correct and that periods come after parenthetical citations. And here is an MLA resource for you. You can click on this and it'll take you to the guide with this information. The next page. Watch your punctuation issues. Ensure that you've run a grammar checker on your essay. Use logic-based verbs. If you're an author, if an author wrote something in the past, use a past tense verb. If the author's story affects you now, use a present tense verb. 1,250 words, 4 pages, not including the works cited page. If you need to go over, that's perfectly fine. But let's don't go over 6. All right, I know this is actually a big topic, and the stories that you choose to tell could take up a lot of the space, but we're going to try to control ourselves. So 4 to 6 pages, I don't want it over that. Very important, please keep in mind the fact that I have 5 Comp 2 classes, so this is a lot of reading for me. I'm not looking for sympathy, not trying to be wah, but at the same time, do be kind. Minimum 1 in-text quote or paraphrase per page, up to 3 quotes or paraphrases per page. Explain why the quote or paraphrase is included in the argument. Use that signal phrase. Assume your audience is ignorant. Be specific and clear. Use quotes and paraphrases if needed in the essay. Setups and signal phrases must be included for all in-text quotes and paraphrases. See the How to Increase Your Word Count handout for assistance. And again, there's a link to that right here. The works cited page is required if quotes or paraphrases are used in MLA format, classic double-spaced. See the MLA example paper for assistance. And then 4 sources minimum on this. Now I need to make myself a note over here, something that I want to remember to do. I need to upload. Oh, I've already got that right here. I've already got that note written down. All right. That brings us to the end. That's the end of week 4's video lecture. If you have questions, you know what to do. Send me a text message and I will respond to you as quickly as I can. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let you go.